with Johnson City's Steve Spurrier getting back into the mix. But then you've got coming up I suppose, let's see here. Over the next week, we've got the Clash coming up on February the 10th, that being on Sunday. And then the week after that, the Daytona 500. And yes, NASCAR is here of NBCSports.com as well as Sirius. And where does there is no off season in NASCAR. I was just talking to you on November about Joey Logano and all that. We talk sometimes about the length of the NASCAR season, but at the same time, it's sort of like the groundhog seeing his shadow. Hey, warm weather is about ready to peak, not far from now. But talk about this. What the NASCAR off season, could it possibly be too short?
Well, the way I like to talk about or explain it, Marky, is it's the longest season in sports, followed by the shortest off-season in sports. That's the way I kind of equate it. But, the thing is, this is something we've been doing for so many years. I mean, what's it been now? Like 20-some years that we've been with this kind of a long stretch of races. And then, the schedule was expanded back in the early 2000s. And so, we're almost at 20 years now where we've been doing schedule may be cut, in the next couple of years. Maybe we're brought down to be 34 races or 32 races. So, if that does happen, then of course the off season will get a little bit longer. And if you ask anybody in NASCAR, I'd say the majority of the people will say the long short, but it is what it is, though. So.
Well, I know one of the bigger things that came out this week was that race-winning cars failing post-race inspection in the 3 national series are now they're disqualified. And the thing, though, is this really that new? I mean, hasn't it been going on in weekly tracks? And, I mean, haven't there been races taken away from drivers before?
Well, you're right. On the lower levels, yes, or the grassroots levels, yes. But never on the Premier Series, NASCAR Cup, or the Gander Outdoor Truck Series, or the Xfinity Series as well, too. So this is kind of, it's new territory for the major series, but for all these drivers that come up through the ranks, not really new, because most of them have probably experienced it in one form or other, in their way up the ladder, if you will. So, but I will say this, I mean, I've been advocating this for probably NASCAR has decided to do that. Honestly, Marky, I think this is a very, very good thing for NASCAR. I think it's a very good thing for the sport. But most importantly, I think it's going to bring back fans. I really wholeheartedly believe that, some fans may have gotten disenchanted over the years. And I think that they're going to give the sport a whole new look-see because, what other sport really allows somebody to cheat blatantly and doesn't take a win away from them? So, I think this is a win-win for NASCAR. It's a win-win for the sport, win-win for the fans. I mean, the only people that it may not be a win-win for are those who may still decide or try to sneak something by the inspectors. And from everything we're hearing, the inspectors are going to be really on task to try to find anything that's wrong with the car. And if a car wins the race and they're found to be in violation, other than if they maybe have like 1 or 2 lug nuts loose, I mean that will let that slide. If anything else more egregious than that, is the points are taken away, the money is taken away. I mean, it's going to be a very costly penalty for anybody that tries to sneak something by them.
I'm reminded of horse racing, where the first thing that happens, though, is after, let's say, your horse finishes second, then you go, could there be an inquiry? Did I still have a chance at this? Is there an inquiry? You hope for that. And I'm sort of wondering if that's not going to be the case now in NASCAR. I'm reminded last year, Kevin Harvick in Texas, they and a lot of people thought that he should have been stripped. Cheating in NASCAR, I mean, is it sort of like, people are opening up the hoods? Is it that doesn't belong there, but wink, wink, we'll let you get away? How often are teams cheating to victory in the first place up until this point?
Well, that's kind of a difficult question to answer because how you quantify cheating. I mean, if it's a blatant violation, that's one thing, but if it's a unintentional violation, I guess is probably the best way to say it, may not be as solidified as it would be if the burnout had not occurred. What happens if you have one, two, maybe even the top three the drivers wind up, or winner, the finishers wind up having violations? I mean, this could go down to fourth place. One of my colleagues at NBC Sports had a piece the other day that I think the number, if I remember correctly, was either 11 or 12 of the last 36 races, I think it was, where there were some post-race violations found on either the winners or in the top three finishers. They would either have some kind of penalty against them and that kind of thing. So this is going to take things to a whole different level, and where NASCAR goes from here. I mean, it's pretty clear. They're putting the hammer down. There's no question about it. The only thing that I'm concerned about, Marky, and I know you want to move on to the next question, but the one thing I'm concerned about, though, is, this is a all or nothing kind of penalty. I mean, there is no chance for an appeal. There is no chance for test. If a win is taken away, if you're found to be in violation, that's it. You're done. The points are gone. The win's gone. You're going to pay a fine. That's pretty. At some point, maybe early in the season. Of course, you can always say the first team that's going to be, found to be in violation. I'm not going to be surprised to see a call for, maybe an appeal be allowed. But then again, we're right back to the square one about whether or not this rule now is take the wins away from teams that are cheating.
I do think, there's going to be maybe that sort of thing, like I said, at the horse track, where you start to wonder, okay, inquiry, if it was really close or something, like, do we still have a chance? I'm not sure if that's good or bad in that case. But I would point out there's a local sports writer, Jeff Birchfield, Johnson City Press, who's well known in motor sports circles. And he said that this kind of reminds me, if drivers, let's say Kevin Harvick would have a victory taken away from him, like Louisville, losing their national championship in 2013. The thing that I look at that is, I'm not sure that fans really don't recognize Louisville as the national basketball champion in 2013. Who do you give it to if not? I mean, it seems to me, off the top of my head, I can't even remember the team that they beat in that NCAA tournament, to be brutally honest with you. And so, I mean, Reggie Bush, you don't win the Heisman. Well, who did win the, I mean, come on, are you going to melt down the trophy now? I mean, what is this all about? And the difference here, though, is I do think horse racing. I mean, if you have that inquiry and it's found like, oh, yeah, there was touching or, whatever. Yeah, then if you bet on the team on the horse that finished second, then you win your bet. And I think it's a similar thing there. You'll have that second place, that third place, whatever finisher win the race. Question is, though, if it happens 2 days later, how satisfying is that? That's the question here. Yeah, that's the question. So we'll see how this pans out and all this. And also, can't you just inspect the cars before the race? All right. Whatever, don't you do that? I mean, you've got that kind of thing. The one of the reasons I don't necessarily mind sticking on that topic, however, is the fact that so much of the other stories in the off season, there seems to be bad news. And one question, I guess, is they talk about layoffs at NASCAR, this sort of thing, coming on, I guess, last Friday, or not last Friday, but last month. Excuse me. There were a round of layoffs going on through NASCAR. There's also questions of losing sponsorship and all of this. I spoke of, these new rules changes in baseball, and I had my own take on what do we have to do to save baseball. Jerry Bonkowski, I want to ask you, what do we need to do to save NASCAR?
I'm not the kind of guy that looks at things as a glass half empty. I don't know if we have to save NASCAR. I think more we just have to get it back to where it once was. And, there have been, some instances over the years that things were not very popular with the fans, and as a result, the fans, they voted by losing interest, walking away, whatever case, you want to call it. But, NASCAR all the years that some of these changes have been made, they, truly and honestly have tried. Either the changes did not stick, if you will, with the fans and the competitors, or there just was not what they had hoped for didn't play out the way NASCAR had hoped for. So I think now NASCAR, especially probably the last 5, 6, 7 years, has really taken to listening to the fans, what they want, and we've seen the changes reflected in that over these last several years when rules changes, and especially now with this new rule, excuse me, this new penalty that if they are found to be cheating, they're going to lose the win. I mean, and that is big, and I think that in and of itself is going to make some fans who used to be very diehard fans say to themselves, you know what, maybe I'm going to come back and start going. I mean, I have a very good friend that lives out in Omaha, and
can you hold that thought here? Because I got a quick break, and we'll take this quick break, and we'll hear about Omaha and also Mustangs versus Camaros when we return.
okay.
All right. Here we go. Well, I thought that I was going to talk about... Are we going to keep it here? We may just keep... All right. Hold on. Because we're on Facebook, and a lot of times I like to do the... instead of have one real long... In fact, that's what I'm trying to do right now. Instead of have one real long... But I guess we'll just have one real long. It's one of those times where we don't have the... or I can't get the... let's see, don't allow... I know it seems very simplistic, but actually one of the things is that our conversations do really work well because I share them with a couple of NASCAR sites on Facebook after I put it on NASCAR, and we get good responses from them. Yeah, so they get with that, it's Unforgettable NASCAR, which deals a little bit with the history and all this, and also my friend that I tell you about, Robert Bright, the most cynical sports fan of all time. He comes on there, and he started. A couple of times I've asked you questions that he brings up, and all this, and how great is Richard Petty really, and all that sort of.
Right.
He's.
By the way, the end of next month, I may be coming to Bristol.
Oh, okay.
So if I can stop by and get around here in person, I'd love to.
We'll try to do that. Hopefully I can get my other microphone fixed by that time. I'll that's been a point of contention with me. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that because I'm broadcasting on Facebook right now. So I don't think I need to make any further comments regarding that. Anyway, I think I already have, and
it would probably be like the last week of March.
Okay.
I'm sorry, no, not March. I might say March. No, it'd be in May. I'm sorry, May.
Okay.
So it'd be around the Coca-Cola 600.
What these NASCAR interviews have done wonders for me and others. I had an old friend I hadn't spoken to in 20 years say, I just saw your interview with Ricky Rockman on NASCAR on YouTube, and I loved it. So that was that. Oh yeah, that was well, because I grew up watching Hank Banger's Ball and all that, so All right, it's Tri-City Sports Now, and one of our, if not our very favorite guests, Jerry Bonkowski, talking to us about NASCAR. The Clash is this weekend, this Sunday at 3. But before we left, you were talking about one of your fans in Omaha, talking a little bit about when I asked you what needs to be done to save NASCAR. And, I had my comments, maybe or a talk about what needs to be done to save baseball again, and just reiterate that. I'm quite traditional, but yeah, I think that could be the case. I asked you this, and you were talking about one of your friends from Omaha. Go forward a little bit more, Jerry Bonkowski of NBCSports.com in Sirius.
Yeah, I mean, he was like one of the biggest NASCAR fans I've ever seen, and he was absolutely huge with his devotion to the sport, his loyalty. He loved Junior, and we all get busy with our lives, with our families, things like that. But this guy was, way up there in terms of his fandom. But anyway, to make a long story short, he used to go to Kansas For the Kansas races twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
He'd go to maybe Talladega once a year and things like that. He'd go to several races a year, is the point I'm making. And he just decided about a year and a half ago to essentially go cold turkey. And, this is a guy that used to wear Dale Earnhardt jackets, T-shirts, all that kind of stuff. And, he's not the exception. He's actually, one of many people that. So when he heard about this new rule that came out earlier this week, he sent me an email or a text on Facebook, and he said, maybe I need to give this another shot. Maybe I need to go back and start attending races. And I think that, from what he said, is a good example of what I think we're going to see from a lot of fans around the country. I mean, fans that maybe have not gone to a NASCAR race for a few years now, or maybe they don't watch it on TV. I think it's going to really be bringing fans back, and I think that's great for the sport.
We'll see. What do you think of Camaros Mustangs joining the Camaros, and then you still have the Toyotas using the traditional sedans? What's that going to be like?
Great move. Now all they need to do is have either the Charger or the Challenger come back with Dodge, and I'd be a happy camper, I'll tell you. But the thing is, the Mustang, I think it's going to bring a whole different realm of things in terms of popularity of the sport as well. I know when the Camaro came in, a lot of teams struggled with adapting to it. When they had the Chevy SS before that, a lot of teams, especially Hendrick Motorsports, they really struggled in adapting to the Camaro. And I don't think the Ford teams are going to have as much struggles with the Mustang, but time will tell. But I'm a big fan, and even though I'm a Dodge guy, and I always will be, I'm still a big fan of the Mustangs and the Camaros. So I think that bringing the pony cars back is going to continue to help bring the sport, get it back on a higher level again. And I think it's going to put the onus on Toyota to are they going to bring the Supra now into the series as well too? I mean, you've got that coming up maybe as early as next year too. So it's good for the sport, and if it's good for the sport, I'm good with it.
Well, you mentioned your love of Mopar. That means, okay, next show we have you on, bring back the Frat Zog. That'll be our new little thing to do and all that movement, because I'd be all for that. I just, this Ram head works for the pickup truck, but the other ones I just can't get, I just can't embrace it and all that. Bring back the Frat Zog.
Wait. But you can't just say that without saying this. Hey, that thing got a Hemi in it?
Yeah. Well, I'm going back. I'll tell you, I mean, this is before my time, but I've seen the YouTube video. I'm thinking Sheriff Joe Higgins.
Oh, yeah. You're going way back now.
Because you got to remember, by the way, Sheriff Joe Higgins, also a regular cast member on Sigmund and the Sea Monsters from my youth on the Croft Superstars, and I'll bet you didn't know that. But, the point being, just a fun story. This for people who don't know, because years and years ago, but in the era of muscle cars, Joe Higgins was an actor who played a sheriff who would pull over the Mopar cars because, you couldn't be driving a race car on the road like you're doing right now. I know one when I see it and all this. And that was the bit that they would do in those days. And it was actually a very satisfying and fun commercial. That's why I would go research it and such. But I can recall, that I had some of the very first Dukes of Hazzard conventions. I had a role in putting them on, and you actually had people on those conventions bringing in. It's like, my dad used to own a Dodge dealership, and I brought this here and it would be Sheriff Joe Higgins with like their dad, and they would bring it to the Dukes convention and all that. Just, that was some. So I got into that. That's how I knew about that.
Yeah, but wasn't Joe Higgins, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he also kind of the model, if you will, for what's his name, Sheriff? What was his name? Gifford T. Justice in Smoking the Bandit. I'm pretty sure he was. They modeled Sheriff Justice after Sheriff Higgins. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it's the same sort of stereotypical, right. Southern, and we could go with that. I mean, big bossman in wrestling or something like that. It's an old stereotype and such. But, yeah, they made it somewhat likable and all this, or at least as likable as you could when you're trying to sell a car and saying, buy this car and you could get arrested. Anyway.
That's right. I remember that.
Anyhow, buy this car, and when you're about to propose to your girlfriend, you may not be able to because of all the other women that'll be around you, all this sort of stuff. Anyway, we've gotten off the beaten track and all that, but when I did want to talk, the thing that I look at, though, is that I thought the pony car last year in the Camaro, obviously it did real well in the road races, but when you're looking, especially at shorter tracks where you had to bang more, just wasn't the weight around that, and I'm wondering if that, should I just put my bet down now for Toyota at Bristol? Do you think that either the Mustang or the Camaro could compete on such a track?
No, I don't think. I mean, they will compete, and the reason I say that, and maybe to go along with your illustration about the Camaro, Camry rather, is that because there was such a change last year with the Chevy Camaro, it was hard for teams to adapt to it. But now I think that with these new rules we're going to have this year, with the lower horsepower at some tracks, the new aerodynamic rules, and that. I think that if anything, it's going to help the between the Ford and the Camaro going up against the Toyota. I don't think the Toyota is going to have that much of an advantage as some people might perceive. I mean, everybody's saying, well, the old models they'll have a better, they'll have a better run. And I don't think that. I don't see that at all. I mean, remember these cars are pretty much basically the same. They just have different nameplates on the racetrack. So from a aerodynamic standpoint, they're going to be pretty similar, but. Again, everybody's going to have to go with these, these new rules. The less horsepower, so we go 750 horsepower at some tracks to only 550. They'll bring tighter racing. The aerodynamics will bring tighter racing. So I think it's going to be a good thing, not a bad thing at all.
Only 550 horsepower. During the Sheriff Joe Higgins era of muscle cars, you could actually get a car from your dealer with more than 550 horsepower,
right.
I believe. Yes, there you are. Anyway, you got the Clash. It's a 75-lap exhibition race. I do kind of like it because it is reminding me of going to, say, some of the tracks with the 15-lap Charger races, and, it's all real compressed, high action, starts right away, in and out, that sort of thing. So it's a different change of pace and one that's kind of satisfying. But my question is there anybody not in the chase this year that you think is a driver to watch on the NASCAR Cup circuit, on the Cup circuit?
In the Clash, you mean, right?
Yeah, in the Clash, I'm sorry. I mean, if there's somebody not in the Clash that you say, you know what, this guy could still be competitive and is somebody to watch, maybe you could make the playoff field.
That's a really difficult question to answer because of what we just spoke about, a minute ago about the dynamic rules and the horse. Overly optimistic about this, but I think that the new rules are going to help the guys who have not had a lot of success, who haven't had a lot of wins. Look at this may not be the best example, but look at Clint Boyer. I mean, he went. What was it? His last win, I believe, was 2012. Then he finally won 2 races last year. So I mean, he went a long period of time, and that's still obviously with the Fusion last year. But the point I'm making is that I think that a lot of the smaller teams are going to have a better chance of maybe getting a chance for a one-off win here or one-off there. And then the teams that have not been successful, Roush Fenway comes to mind immediately. I think they're going to have a better chance if they can adapt very well to the Ford very quickly right out of the box. So I think that this is going to be I hate to use that phrase, the great equalizer, but I think between the Ford and the Camaro, the Mustang and the Camaro, it's going to be an equalizer. And the smaller teams that are running the Fords or the smaller teams that are running the Chevys, I think they'll be able to step up their game. And plus, the other thing that we talk about this a lot is the technical alliance. Look at like Bubba Wallace and Richard Petty Motorsports. They've got a technical alliance with Richard Childress Racing, and so I think that looking what they're going to do this coming season, they have a good chance of doing very well too. I think that this is going to be a year to really remember. I mean, I said that at the beginning of 2018, and really wasn't that great of a year to remember. It was a good season, but it wasn't a great season. I think that 2019 has the potential to be a great season in NASCAR, and I think that if we're talking 5 years from now and we see NASCAR really on the big upswing, I think we can kind of point towards what 2019 did to start bringing that comeback back.
He's being very optimistic. Here's what I want to see happen in 2020. If it done, and it is, you want to talk about what saves NASCAR, and I ask what saves baseball. I'll go in and give you this preview. The Kannapolis Intimidators don't change their name. What in the? Did you see that? I thought outrageous, outrageous. I know they're moving into a new stadium, but my goodness, I mean, you know, the Braves did not change their name when they moved into SunTrust Park and all this, and for that matter, when they tried to change their name to the Bees many years ago back in Boston, it didn't work out either. Do you classify that from a what are they thinking?
Well, you know, they've got new ownership. They've got a lot of new guys in the front office, and you know, when you're in that lower level of minor league baseball, you've got to do everything you can to bring the fans in. And you know, Kannapolis, you know, they've long been with the Intimidators. They've had the Intimidators name now since what 2001, I believe.
Yeah.
They've had that name for 18 years, 18 seasons, and you know, a lot of baseball fans, or for that matter, a lot of people who moved into the Kannapolis area, may not really be NASCAR fans, and they may not get the link between the Intimidator, which obviously was Dale Earnhardt Sr., and the baseball team. And I think that with a new team, I mean a new stadium they're going to move into next year, they want to rebrand themselves to be essentially a little more relevant. I guess they may not be the right word, but I think you're seeing where I'm coming from with this. And so, you know, I mean, I know we had a story on NBC Sports about that, and the assistant general manager has said that, you know, it becomes a situation where the fans who are going to, you know, put their votes in and come up with a racing theme, then they'll stay with the racing theme. They just won't stay with the Intimidators. So I kind of understand it from a business standpoint, but I'm also like you too, Marky. I'd love to see the name, but again, it's all about maybe relevancy, I guess.
I think that excuse is terrible, and I think that to change the name of that team, they're talking the minor league baseball team, the Kannapolis Intimidators, moving into a new ballpark next year, of course, Kannapolis, North Carolina, where Dale Earnhardt Sr. was from, talking about changing the name of the team. I think that would be like the Winnipeg Jets changing their name, because, you know, that's still an affiliation with, you're from Chicago, you would know this, Bobby Hull. The Golden Jet was their first star and such. I mean, you know, that's, you know, and you've got a lot of that. The Cleveland Indians, Lucas Sockalexis. You've got the Pittsburgh Pirates, Louis Bierbauer. I know that he's not a big, huge star, but that's what it was from. I mean, you know, okay, nobody knows who Louis Bierbauer is, but do we change the Pirates' name? I think that would be absurd, and I think that it's a great historical thing. It would be to me like telling you that the Washington and Lee presidents need to change their name. Why? You know why? Or no, it's the Generals. I'm sorry, the Washington and Lee Generals. The Washington and Jefferson presidents need to change their name. Why? Why exactly? You know, wait a minute. What else are they known for? And that's going to live the test of time. As I certainly,
I mean, you talk about Kannapolis. I mean, you know, their history before they were the Intimidators, they were known as, I think, was it the Boll Weevils? I think it was there for a while, and that a lot of it has to do with their past heritage as a very big mill town. You know, back in the early part of the previous century, and you know, that was, for lack of a better word, their claim to fame. And then, you know, with Dale Earnhardt being from Kannapolis, and you know, they immediately, and he also became a shareholder of the team there for a long time as well, too. Even after his passing, the state held ownership of the team, too, for several years. So my contention, I was talking about this with my colleagues over at NBC the other day, what happens, you know, I mean, there is one other NASCAR team of note that is still in Kannapolis, and that's Stewart Haas Racing. And I said to my colleagues, I said, you know, they're not going to be known as the Intimidators any longer. If fans do want a racing theme, well, let's call them the Kannapolis Smokes after Tony Smoke Stewart.
I think that no, I mean, Boll Weevil, every town in the South, every town has a mill of some sort, be it a sawmill, a steel mill, a bread mill, I don't know, you know, grain mill, something of that nature. They've all got them. Nothing unique about that. You know, there's only one Dale Earnhardt, and I think that even the people that used to drive around with those anybody but Earnhardt stickers on their cars, and you couldn't go to a parking lot at one time in the South without seeing one, I think they think it's absurd to change the name from the Intimidators. My opinion. I think it's absurd that you don't listen to Jerry Bonkowski or read his stuff on motorsports on NBCSports.com, or listen to him on Sirius, and certainly we'll be having you, I guess, again this year as well on Tri-City Sports Now, previewing and talking about the races. Be back, I'll review what needs to be done to save baseball, but also a little bit of, what about this new AAF, this new Alliance of American Football? What about it? I'll tell you. Tri-City Sports Now. All right. There you go. All right. I shall talk to you later, okay?
All right, sounds good, Murky.
All right. Bye-bye.
So, whether I'm fixing a furnace